right. Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Shalom.
How's everybody doing this Sabbath?
Great.
All right. So, first and foremost, we want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High. Haya Bahashem Yeshaya Wa Rawak. In English, that is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We have a really good lesson to go into today. It's not going to be too long. It's just really to touch on a couple of things. The title of today's lesson is going to be "Stay Focused." Right? Stay focused. Now that title is it sort of leads you into a series of different directions, but the direction is clear and it's going to be It's going to be a very straightforward lesson today. So first and foremost, we want to send all our love and let everybody know in Sierra Leone we are thinking of you, and we'll be getting in contact with you all very soon. Hopefully, you guys will be tuning into the live today. And second, we wanted to let everybody know that we did a lesson a week before last, entitled "The Strength to Endure." And that was an extremely powerful lesson that pertains to everybody inside the truth or outside the truth.
Yes.
And we made a short clip that we want to that sort of encompasses sort of the highlights of that video. It's a short video just to let everybody know to go after this lesson is over, or whenever you have time to just listen to this lesson and meditate on it and think on it, so that you have some time to actually figure yourself out and do some self-examination.
Right.
It's an extremely powerful lesson, so we do suggest that you go and look at this video so you can go ahead and run the clip.
Every move you make, every decision that you make, every business plan that you set up fails. Everything you try to do is failing. And you know what? For a Christian, for those Christian family members that you got, they looking at you like, what have you gotten yourself into?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because when you was in the Christian church, you had that beautiful house up in Wiki Wachi, everything, your business was going well, this was happening, and all of a sudden you start dealing in this and lose everything. And now that you're trying to get out of this, everything that you're trying ain't working either.
Yeah.
It says, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take it cheerfully.
Take it cheerfully. That's right.
And be patient.
Right.
And be patient when thou art brought to a low estate.
Come on.
Because if you're in that low estate, you're in there for a reason.
That's right.
Right?
Come on.
What is the resolve? What is the solution? When everything seems to fail, when your whole life seems like it's falling apart, what is the resolve? Read verse 3.
Oh, cleave unto him.
That's the resolve. Faith. Read.
That thou mayest be increased at thy last end.
That thou mayest be increased in that last end. We're storing up treasures in heaven, not here.
That's right.
Come on.
If you think that this work is for something here, you're sadly mistaken. You're horribly mistaken. The works that we do is for the kingdom of heaven. Christ is coming with a kingdom.
Come on.
And you know what? The Most High is taking it from you because he wants to take away the things that the devil's given to you and rebuild you with things that he's giving to you. Things that can't be taken away.
That's it.
You think that it's the Most High taking these things. No, it's Satan taking them.
That's right. That's right.
Satan gave it to you and he's taking it because he wants to force you back to him.
That's right.
He said, you know what? I gave you that Mercedes that you love so much. I'm going to take that. I gave you that nice house. I'm going to take that. And you know what? The Most High saying, cleave unto me. Have faith.
Right.
Don't run away. Be patient. We're being stripped of everything that was given to us by Satan in his world and being rebuilt with full reliance on the Most High. Full reliance and faith in the Most High. Because as soon as we start following the Most High, Satan is going to take away everything he gave you while you were working for him. Because if you're not working for the Most High, how many of y'all know if you're not working for the Most High, you're working for Satan? According to the Most High, your work is to take the sledgehammer to his kingdom, to set fire to his kingdom. If what the Most High gave you to do that, if he gave you a sledgehammer and you put it down and you sitting down watching everybody else work, guess who you're working for? Yeah, there are no bystanders in this war. There's one side and there's another side. Let's get Isaiah chapter 59, verse 14.
Isaiah 59 and 14.
This is going to be a deep scripture. Read.
And judgment is turned away backwards, and justice standeth afar off. For truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. Verse 15. Yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey.
Read that again.
He that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey.
He that departs from evil makes himself a prey. Satan is coming to get you.
That's right.
When you decide that I'm no longer going to commit sin, I'm no longer going to do evil, you've made yourself an enemy of the state. Everyone is going to be out to get you.
All right, powerful lesson from last week.
That's right.
Week from before last. That was a powerful lesson. All praises to the Most High for that one. And this one this week is going to be as powerful, if not just as powerful.
That's right.
This lesson is more of a reminder, right? To get some of our people back on track. It's really sad how easily distracted we are as a people, right?
Forgetful too.
Exactly. It's like the short-term memory mixed with the foolishness is ultimately what Christ was what the scriptures was talking about when it said our people perish for a lack of knowledge. Right. So let's jump right in. I'm Bishop Tazadat, and this is Elder Nathaniel of the House of Judah International Fellowship Church. Let's dive right in. Right? The lesson is entitled Stay Focused. Stay focused. Many of us who are in the truth, in the beginning of the truth, those of us who have been enduring in this truth for a long period of time, or those of us who are new to this truth, and even those who aren't in the truth have been engrafted or brought into this confusion that is the world system. Right? All of these storylines and false flags, everybody's sort of just been ushered into it. Right? Where from things like the elections to coronavirus to the protesting and the deaths and all of this kind of stuff that's surrounding our people in this time, right? We've allowed ourselves to assimilate ourselves into these particular, whether they be movements or parties or different movements and things like that, have allowed ourselves to become pulled by one side or the other. Right? The focus of this lesson is not only to remind our people of the task at hand and the true enemy that we face, but to also give context to these events that are occurring around us, because we must remember that these things and the timing in which they are happening is not by accident.
Not at all. It's
not by accident. One thing that we as God's chosen must understand is that every main storyline of 2020 ultimately points back to the destruction of God's people.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
This is why you look at it and it seems like all of these particular movements, whether they be events, false flags, they all point directly back to the tribe of Judah. Well, it directly affects us first. Blacks voting in the election of Biden or Trump. Which side are you on? You're not black if you don't vote Biden, right? Right? Go vote. Your vote matters. Black people, get out there and vote. More black people showed up to vote for Biden than voted for Obama.
That's what they
That's
say.
what they say, right?
Right.
Figuring out a way to concoct and divide our people from the inside,
Come on.
right? Why? Because there's a unity happening. See, this is the problem, is that we saw our people not just a couple months ago unite under the death of George Floyd. And we saw our people unite in a common cause to fight racial injustice. That's another segment where all of our people are the center of attention, right? And you start seeing, the Bloods and the Crips have all come together and they decided that they ain't gonna fight no more until the presidential election, which came directly after the unification of our people. Just coming again to redivide our people.
That's right.
Coincidence?
I think not.
Right? Now, the problem with the George Floyd situation is that was also something that was used, right? For particularly rallying our people, to cause our people to be pushed to the forefront of a lot of different narratives. Because through those protests, we also came to the forefront of the coronavirus. Now they're saying that Black people are more affected by COVID-19 than every other nation, every other race.
Wow.
Oh, because we were out protesting without masks, right? Now all of a sudden we're the most affected nation by the coronavirus, right? So these are the three main storylines of 2020, all of which Blacks sit at the helm.
Wow.
Coincidence?
I think that.
Right? It's not that none of the other tribes are being affected.
Right.
It's not that none of the other tribes are being affected. But what we must understand is that the Blacks are the most important part of this movement, right?
That's right.
According to the scriptures, we are the ones that are leading this movement,
Come on.
right? It says that the scepter shall not depart from Judah till Shiloh come,
Come on.
right? That's Genesis chapter 49.
Right.
So the heart of this movement, right, begins with us. We would lead the awakening of our people, right? Let's get that in Zephaniah.
Zephaniah or Zechariah?
Zechariah, Salakia.
Zechariah chapter 12, verse 7. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first.
He shall save the tents of Judah first. Why does he need to save the tents of Judah first? Because we are the ones that are under the attack. Why? Read.
That the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah.
Because if you wake the tribe of Levi up first, if you wake the tribe of Benjamin up first, they now have the power.
Right.
Right? They can usurp authority because they are the ones that are leading the charge. Right? So he says, no, I need the king tribe. I need the king of the nation of Israel to rise first. Because if they don't rise first, another tribe can feel as though they can usurp authority over the tribe of Judah. He said, no, that's not how this is going to work. We need Judah to rise first.
Right.
I need to save the tents of Judah first. That's why the Blacks are under the kind of attack now that we are. Because they understand that the movement begins with Judah.
Wow.
Right? That's why they claim that the Blacks are the main group being affected by the coronavirus. Protesting. Oh, Blacks need to get out there and protest. The very thing that you claim, that made us the face of the coronavirus, you want us to keep doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
The face of racial injustice. Right? All these storylines point directly back to the tents of Judah.
Come on now.
Right? Like I said, it's not saying that none of the other tribes are being affected, but there's a reason why Zechariah said that the Most High would save the tents of Judah first. Right? Let's get Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 18.
Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 18. In those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers.
So he's saying that after the movement, after the awakening of the children of the tribe of Judah, and they continue to awaken the rest of the tribes, we would leave the land of the north. What is the land of the north? Babylon, also known as the United States of America, right? And we would be led out of the land of the north into the land that we're given unto our fathers. We'll be guided back into the wilderness and into the land that was promised to our forefathers, right? That's something that we all know, right? Now, the problem with our people is that we've become so engulfed in these particular movements and these divisions that we've ourselves forgotten who the enemy is. Those who once knew that the enemy was Amalek, that the enemy was Satan who sits behind Amalek, now see Donald Trump as the enemy. Or look at Joe Biden as the enemy. Or they're looking at, the Queen of England as the enemy, or the president of Russia as the enemy, or the president of China as the enemy, or the white man as the enemy, or COVID-19 as the enemy. Right? We've forgotten who our enemy is under the propaganda. Oh, well, got to be careful of the coronavirus. Separate myself from you. Don't touch me. Don't look at me, or else you're going to give me the coronavirus. Or don't talk to those white people. See. And even that plays hand in hand with stunting or disrupting the awakening. Right? When you create a divide between blacks and whites under Joe Biden and Donald Trump, under the racial injustices that have always systematically existed within the U.S., now the people that they already claimed, which is us, saying that those who believe that they're Israel are racist, what does that do for the movement? It's a race war waiting to happen, or a race war waiting to happen. Now they look at the Israelite movement as a racist movement. Something that came up. This is a movement that came up underneath the racial injustices that began with George Floyd. See how they start to intermingle storylines? But ultimately, at the pinnacle of all of these issues, where is Judah? The face of it.
Come on.
Right? In a country that preaches coexist. Now all of a sudden, a friend that you've been friends with for 6 years supports Joe Biden instead of Trump, or vice versa, and now you can no longer be friends.
Exactly.
Or you can't talk to me. You can't have me on your social media.
That's sad.
If you support Donald Trump, or if you support, or if you're a Republican, or if you are a Democrat, or if you're an independent, or if you're a person who doesn't choose either side. At this point, it's like, pick a side or don't talk to me at all. I've seen that. How many of you have seen that on your social media where you say, if you didn't vote, unadd me?
Yeah.
If you didn't vote, unfollow me right now.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's where you can't even be neutral. It's like, pick a side, right?
Come on.
Wow.
You see the foolishness?
It's sad, but it's true.
And what they're claiming is that the division is up top, right? Oh, well, since there's division in the government, there's divisions amongst the people. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are probably friends. behind closed doors. A lot of these politicians will argue on screen and go get dinner afterwards.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
That's true.
The division, we are dividing ourselves. See, the coronavirus, when they say it's asymptomatic, it all suddenly went from a virus that you could see. Before it was like if somebody coughed, they got COVID. Somebody sneezed, they got COVID. Now you don't need to cough or sneeze to be COVID. So now you're wary of everybody that you're around. Well, don't get too close. I know I live in the same house as you, and I just got in the same car as you on the way home. But don't get too close, because you may be COVID. You just sat 2 feet from me in the same car. We was rubbing elbows in the car. And we get out, and you want me to stand 6 feet from you because of COVID.
Wow.
The main reasons for blacks being the focal point of these storylines is because our tribe is directly responsible for waking the rest of the children of Israel up. Right? Now the question is, who is the real enemy? Remember, the lesson, the name of the lesson is stay focused. Right? Because now we've gotten deluded and distracted with all of these particular political and social issues. That we've been distracted from what we're really supposed to be focused on. Right? Because keep in mind, there's always something behind the something.
Come on.
You think that is COVID. You think that is Donald Trump, Joe Biden. You think that is racial injustice. So that's the wall that you put up, but you don't see what's going on behind that wall. We're going to show you what's going on behind that wall. Let's get Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood.
How many times have you heard that? I bet you're tired of hearing that. But we're going to go in a different direction with this scripture today. Read.
But against principalities.
But against principalities. Read.
Against powers.
Against powers.
Against rulers of darkness of this world.
Against the rulers of darkness of this world. Right? Read.
Against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Against spiritual wickedness in high places. The one thing that we must recognize in this scripture is that it is not exclusive to things we are not privy of seeing. Right? A lot of people look at this scripture and say, well, that means that our battle is only with things that we cannot see. I'm sorry, but 70 AD was very visual. You look back at 70 AD and it was definitely something that you could see and feel. So don't think that because our battle is spiritual that it cannot manifest itself in the physical. How? How does it manifest itself in the spiritual and in the physical? People, right? Because even though it is not only speaking of things that we are not privy to seeing, but also things and people that they place in front of us. Right? So puppets, presidents, queens, and other rulers around the world, right? It's speaking of these people too. That's why it says against rulers of darkness of this world, right? Against spiritual wickedness in high places. There's two aspects to this wickedness. And just because our battle is against the spiritual doesn't mean that that wickedness doesn't manifest itself in the physical. Understand what I'm saying here? Right? We must understand that these men and women in these powerful positions are acting as puppets for the principalities operating behind them. This is why, right? This is why leaders and dictators come and go. They come and go. They die, a new one comes up. They die, a new one comes up. Or in our case, a president's elected. He leaves office. Another president's elected. He leaves office. But guess what? The same agendas get done. The same thing that a president 100 years ago was trying to accomplish is the same thing that a president now is trying to accomplish. The agendas are the same.
Come on.
From leader to leader. leaders die, principalities remain. That means that the ideas of the spirits that are operating behind them are still operating. We are battling an age-old agenda against Satan and his wicked governments. The same government that we are fighting now is the same racist government that existed in Rome. It's the same racist government that existed in Greece. It's the same wicked government that existed in Babylon and Assyria and Persia. Right? These are the same wicked governments and the same spirit operating behind these governments. Right? So voting within the same government of Satan's puppets has not benefited our people. It's like going into a closet, right? And picking which hand puppet you want. You want a black one or a white one? But guess what? The hand on the inside of that puppet is the same exact hand that's been with all the rest of them. So you get to pick your puppet. You think you get to pick your puppet at least. Like, go ahead. We got 3 puppets for you guys this year. Which one you want? And you expect our people to benefit from that? The agenda has been against our people, has been to fight God's chosen from the beginning. And you expect that to change? Come on. Under the same wicked government? See, a lot of people are going to think that what I'm saying is far-fetched, but we have an example of this in the scriptures. Ever heard of the king of Tyrus? Let's get the king of Tyrus. Ezekiel.
All right. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him.
Take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus. So he tells Ezekiel, go and see the king of Tyrus. I want you to speak these words to him. Read.
Thus saith the Lord God, thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty.
So he's speaking to a man right now. Ezekiel has gone and he's speaking to a king, right? What does the Most High say to this king? Go ahead and get verse 13.
Verse 13, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone is thy covering. The sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day thou was created.
Does it sound like he's speaking to the king of Tyrus? Was the king of Tyrus in the Garden of Eden? No. Who was? Satan was in the Garden of Eden, right? Samuel in the form of a serpent, right? He was in the Garden of Eden, right? That's why the scripture speaks of him and calls him that old serpent, the devil. Thou hast been in the Garden of Eden. We've heard this be said before. How hast thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, O son of the morning? How is thou cast down to hell, right?
Right.
How is thou cast down to earth, which did weaken the nations, right?
Yeah.
So we've seen this before. Ezekiel was sent to speak to the king of Tyrus, but he's not speaking directly to the king of Tyrus. He's speaking to the spirit that's operating behind Tyrus.
Right.
So Tyrus, people are looking at the king of Tyrus and thinks that these are his wicked actions, when it's actually Satan moving him like a puppet. This is what you tell the people. This is what you put in place. This is what you're going to do today.
Right.
It's the same thing. People are thinking that they're looking at a normal government here under the king of Tyrus. They're like, oh, it's a government. This is Satan's government. That's why he said, thou hast been in the Garden of Eden. Tyrus wasn't in the Garden of Eden. He wasn't even born yet. He's not speaking to the king of Tyrus. He's speaking to the spirit behind Tyrus. He's speaking directly to Samael, Lucifer. Right?
Done.
He's speaking to that old serpent. How do we know this? Anybody got a scripture that says Tyrus was in the Garden of Eden? Anybody? This is the same angel, right? This is the Satan, Lucifer, Samuel, whatever name he wants to go by. This is the same angel that was operating with the Caesars.
Mm-hmm.
The same spirit that was operating behind Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Every wicked ruler has sought to come against our people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has the same spirit behind them.
Come on.
The same principalities rule our governments today.
Mm-hmm.
No different. From Nimrod to Esau to Cain. Right? You get to the Assyrians, you get to the Babylonians, you come to the Persian Medes, you go to the Greeks, and you go all the way down to the Roman Caesars with the Caesars and Nero and Vespasian and Titus.
Mm-hmm.
The rulership is the same. Right? The governments are the same. That's why all of these governments had it in their mind and said, these Israelites aren't bothering anyone. Let's go enslave them. Think about it. The Chinese people were sitting in their country for all of this time in China,
Mm-hmm.
minding their own business. The only people that sought to attack China was other Chinese people. So you got an unconquered land,
Mm-hmm.
an unconquered nation, not bothering anybody. You got Israel, who's not bothering anybody, doing their own thing. You got China, who's doing their own thing, not bothering anybody. And over all of these years, nobody chose China.
Come on.
And all this time, nobody chose China.
Come on.
China didn't even have to test their military efforts against foreign nations. Right? You didn't even have to test it. They were sitting there for centuries. Nobody bothered them. They bothered no one. But Israel is minding their own business. And everybody just automatically makes up in their mind, year after year, century after century, let's get them. Tell me that's not racism. Tell me if that's not what racism is.
Yeah. Come on.
You got a white dude next door that's causing a ruckus. You got a black family next door that's minding their own business.
Mm-hmm.
But the one who's getting complaints is the black family minding their own business. Right?
Wow.
Is that not racism? People talk about a race war. We've been in a race war.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a race war since Jacob and Esau were born.
That's right.
Come on.
We've been in a race war. This thing hasn't stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
Let's get Ephesians chapter 6. Go back to Ephesians chapter 6.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 13. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand.
No, we're supposed to go out and protest, right? That's not what that says. It says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in that evil day. It doesn't say go and fight the wicked government by voting.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Come on.
The Bible doesn't say go to the polls and vote for your next wicked leader in order to
Exactly.
in order to withstand in this evil day. We gotta vote, or else you're gonna go back into slavery.
Wow.
Is this not already slavery? When you're being paid below your living wages, right? When you're being paid, let's just say it like this. When you're spending a dime and only earning a nickel, is that not slavery?
Come on.
If they pay you below what it costs to live, you still aren't making anything.
That's right.
It's no different than if they didn't give you money at all and said, you know what, come work for me. I'll give you bread and some water and you can sleep in that shack out back. That was slavery.
Yeah.
And black people are still living in it. Section 8 housing is the shack. The job isn't helping you because guess what? You're still below what it costs to live.
Come on.
So you aren't making any money. What people wonder why it's so hard to get out of the hood. You got to choose between eating or getting out of the hood,
Come on.
right? So you aren't making enough. So you get food stamps. You go on welfare, right? So you go on food stamps, welfare. Still, you're basically just getting enough to pay the rent. So you're paying the rent and you're eating. Nothing left over. Nothing left over. That's slavery. That's captivity. That's the same thing that we were doing when we were in slavery, X the money. Wow. We go to work, they give us rations, and you got a shack out back to sleep in. Come back to work tomorrow morning, and you get Sundays off.
Wow.
Is it not? Is that not what slavery was? Anybody in objection? So let's not talk about what president is going to put us in slavery next. when we lived this,
Come on.
right? In order for us to be able to survive and be able to navigate this time, we have to gird up ourselves spiritually in the word, right? If we think we can fight this battle physically, we've already lost. And we've been losing. Go to the polls and vote. How long have we been doing that? How long have we been going to the polls and voting? People are wondering why our turnout isn't big. Because guess what? The law still says that only one of our votes, it takes 3 of our votes to count for one person.
Come on. Tell the truth.
So you wonder why our turnout numbers aren't that great. It's because our numbers are still being fractioned. Right? So, yeah, go to the polls and vote. Name one time that's worked. People think, oh, it's the presidential election. Yeah. Was it your president? And for those who are in Florida, was it your president who passed that last bill to allow for regular people to shoot anyone who seems like a violent mob? Was that your president or was that your local government? Was that your governor or was that the president of the United States who said, well, shoot anybody who gets together in a group that looks like a mob? I'm sorry, but for black people, when you got a cookout going and you got the Gap band playing, and you got cards out and dominoes, it's gonna look a little bit like a mob. So you just give them the freedom to go in and
Just open fire.
to fire on the operation.
Wow.
Tell the truth.
That was your president who did that, right? And see, that's the problem. We've been programmed into utter stupidity, where you think that the president is the most important person, when that isn't even how the U.S. was set up.
Come on.
How many of you know that each state is a country?
Come on.
That's how the government was set up. So each state could technically secede from the union and become its own country.
Come on.
We're just a band of countries together under one particular rulership. But each state operates in its own power. So if you elect a person who's racist into office, then that is your leader. More so than the president.
Come on.
Didn't know that, did you? Because that's not what you were told.
Wow.
The president has to get permission to override certain things that he can do within a state. That's why presidents don't overreach their bounds in states. They can't tell a state what to do.
Come on.
The state itself has to vote on it. So you think that the president, get out there and vote for the president, but when everything's real quiet, when Senate, with the Senate and with the mayors and with the governors of your own state, nope, it's the white folks voting on that one. And you wonder why you're still in the position that you're in as a people. Because the people that have always oppressed you, those same families that ran the plantations, are still electing your local officials. Congratulations, we've gotten nowhere.
Wow.
So if you think that this battle is something that can be fought physically, this country was built off of racism. We can't go back and change that. It's already over. Our people are stuck thinking that it's the president or the pope or some monarch and holding up signs saying with t-shirts singing "We shall overcome" and with t-shirts that read "vote," while the spirits of this world are kicking our behinds. It's the president. It's the pope. We need to get the queen up out of there. Meanwhile, these spirits and their agenda are whooping us. They are moved. People out there with their t-shirts on, I'm sorry, but the leaders of this earth aren't shaken. They're not scared because you're doing exactly what they want you to do. Yeah, if you're out there in them streets and you ain't wearing a mask, go ahead and take that person down. And if you are wearing a mask, well, they're wearing a mask. We couldn't see who it was. So we're going to have to just get everybody just to make sure that it wasn't you. You know, all black people look alike. So if you got on a mask and it's about 10,000 people out there with a mask on, right? You got a mask on. And they look at this and they're like, well, how can we possibly identify 10,000 people who are wearing masks at this protest or at this riot? Well, we got to shut down. We got to lock down everybody. Those same people that claim to be fighting the coronavirus or racial injustice are only helping to further the destruction of our people. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. If you think that you can fight a spiritual battle physically, you're already finished.
That's right.
You think that the issue is the president. Try looking at the spirit behind the president. If you don't know that spirit that's been operating behind every president, behind every leader, behind every monarch, you lose. And the only way that you know your enemy is with his history. And his history is in the Bible.
That's right.
Come on, tell the truth.
His attack is on a people. Christians want to say, oh, it's the Christian faith. And they go, I'm sorry, but Christians were called Christians first at Antioch. And last time I checked, they were black.
Come on.
So yes, this is in a sense an attack on a belief system. But let's not forget that these attacks were happening prior to Christ.
Come on.
It's just more of a problem now that Christ came. Let's get Daniel chapter 9, verse 2.
Daniel chapter 9, verse 2. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of the years, whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet. And he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem.
In the desolations of Jerusalem. Go ahead and drop down to verse 26.
Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and for the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy.
The people of the prince shall come and shall destroy.
the city and the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And the end thereof shall be with a flood.
Mm-hmm.
And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined.
So we must understand, and that's why like I said, once again, this lesson is entitled "Stay Focused," because there's a battle that's coming, a spiritual battle that will manifest itself in the spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's being headed up by a government, by a wicked government, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're so focused at looking at what's going on, that what they put in front of us, we don't see what's going on behind all of it. Mm-hmm. Right? The closer you stand to the wall, the less that you see. The further you stand back from the wall, the more that you see. Right? Mm-hmm. So if you allow yourself to be engulfed in all of these issues, with all of these political issues and different things like that, you've now restricted your vision in any direction. Let's take a step back and look at this for what it is, right? So after Christ would be killed, this is what Daniel is prophesying. After Christ would be killed, the people of the prince. Who is this prince? Right? This is speaking of the prince of darkness, right? Mm-hmm. Satan. Right? So the people of the prince. And we know according to scripture when this particular prophecy was fulfilled in Daniel, right? The killing of the Messiah, the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD. Right? This is 70 AD in the fall of Jerusalem. So we know that the people who destroyed Jerusalem were who? The Romans. Mm-hmm. So that means that the people of the prince of darkness, the people of Satan, are the Romans. Mm-hmm. So it says that the Romans would come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. This desolation was prophesied in Daniel's time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years prior to Christ. Right? The goal of this nation was to destroy the rest of God's people from off the land. Right? That was the goal. At that time, that was the goal. In Daniel's time, that was the goal. And that is still the goal. Right? The prince of darkness is still focused on destroying the children of Israel. How do we know this? Let's get Matthew chapter 24, verse 15.
Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation.
The abomination of desolation, read.
Spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Mm-hmm. Stand in the holy place. Mm-hmm. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Whoso readeth, let him understand. So Christ is talking about the same people of Satan, right? The Romans, right? Because keep in mind, they had an understanding. Between Christ and the disciples, they had an understanding as to who the children of darkness were. Why? Because they knew who the Messiah was. They knew Christ was the Messiah. So if they know that at Christ's death, they know that there's a short time after for the desolation of Israel. And what captivity are they under at this time? The Roman captivity. They know who the prince of darkness is, right? And they know who the people of the prince of darkness is. So Christ is speaking of the same prophecy that was written by Daniel the prophet. So he's saying, y'all remember Daniel the prophet? We read it. Mm-hmm. Shortly after I die, the Romans are going to come and destroy Israel. This is what you do. This is what you do. Verse 16.
Verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Read that again.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
So Christ gave a prerequisite. He gave them a warning. He said, listen, when you shall therefore see the abomination of desolation. So this means that there are signs. Mm-hmm. There are signs that came. There were certain things that would happen that would show that the abomination of desolation was coming. The demonization of their people, right? That's what happened first. He said, when you start seeing the Roman armies move themselves into our cities, when you start seeing the armies on the streets, when you start seeing them demonize Black Jews who believe in Christ, know that it's time for you to leave. Know that it's time for you to leave. He said, when you see a heavy military presence, I need you to flee into the mountains of Africa. Right? We know, according to various studies performed by historians, that millions of Jews fled Roman persecution in Africa. They hid themselves among the dark races. Same thing that Moses did. Same thing that Christ did. Where did they go when they were being pursued by either the Romans or the Egyptians? They hid amongst the dark races. Christ went from Israel, which was in Roman captivity at the time. He was being pursued by Esau, white people. So where did he go? Amongst black people. He hid himself in Africa. Right?
Come on.
So these various signs would come to show us when it was time to flee. And we have seen time and time again in history that false flags have been handy in manipulating the public to bring forward an agenda. I'm going to say that again. We have seen time and time again that false flags have been used and been handy in manipulating the public to move forward with an agenda. See, the last thing that a government wants to do is make it appear as if they're forcing you to do something.
That's right.
So they need to figure out a way to incentivize them making a decision. Sandy Hook. Church shootings. A bus drives through a couple of hundred people, but there's no blood anywhere on the bus. It hits and kills over 300 people, but ain't no blood on the bus whatsoever. No dings, no nothing.
Come on.
Bus came out clean after running over 300 people. Right? And then what came up after that? And in France, with that bus situation, what came out of that? Martial law.
Yeah.
With the shooting situations, with these false flag shootings, what came out of that? Gun seizure.
That's right.
Gun control. See, if they had came in and said, well, we're just going to take your guns, how would the people have reacted?
Nope.
See, but now that these particular things have coming up, where they say, well, look at all these people shooting because of all these issues that happened before, because of the guns. Now people are calling for gun seizure. People are saying, take the guns. Come on, take the guns. Right? See, it went from a situation that could have wound up bad to a situation where the people have submitted to the agenda that they always wanted. I'm sorry, but how many shootings have been happening in the history of guns in the U.S.? It was, I mean, black folks was getting killed with guns in our neighborhoods long before, long before 2002. Civil War, this country, the conception of this country and our secession from England began with the revolt from people with guns.
Come on.
And now all of a sudden, you want to take them.
Come on.
See, what a lot of people don't realize is that this is just history repeating itself, right? Because when you go back and you look at our history, they did the same thing in 70 AD with the Jews. The Jews are minding their business in 70 AD. We weren't bothering nobody. The same way that we're doing here. You don't see black people going around causing no issues, fighting people and all that kind of stuff. Yet, there's always a pretext to go against us. What you'll find is that all of these storylines are pointing to us the same way that they did when Rome destroyed us.
Wow. Yeah.
Zondervan Bible Dictionary, right? This is the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary right here. We're going to go to Nero in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. It says in AD 64 AD, right? This is 6 years before 70 AD, the final destruction of Rome. It says a large part of Rome was destroyed by fire. Whether or not Nero actually ordered the burning of the city is controversial. However, justly or not, the finger of suspicion was pointed in Nero's direction. A scapegoat was provided. in the Christians. Conspiracies and plots dogged the later years of Nero, and he was advised to destroy himself, but could not have the courage to do so. Right? He finally died under his own hand in the summer of 68. Thus, Caesar, both Paul and Peter suffered at martyrdom under Nero. So Nero was responsible for Paul and Peter's deaths under this false flag. See, even here it says that the death, the fire of Rome was controversial. They believed that Nero started the fire. What does their own history say? This is the Annals of Imperial Rome by Tacitus, a Roman. He was a Roman historian, right? What does he have to say about the fire of Rome? On page 363, starting on page 363, it says, nobody dared fight the flames. This is 64 AD. Nobody dared to fight the flames. This is speaking of the fire that started in Rome. So this flame is starting and nobody even tried to stop it, right? Attempts to do so were prevented by menacing gangs. So people who did try to stop the fire were stopped by gangs, right? Torches too were openly thrown in. Wow. So people were out there throwing fire into the flames, right? By men crying that they acted under orders. So while this flame is going, you got Romans throwing fire into the flames, people trying to stop it. They're like, listen, I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm doing what I'm getting paid to do. Right. It says perhaps they had received orders, or they had wanted to plunder unhampered. Right? So not only were they setting the city on fire, but they were also stealing. Does that not sound a whole lot like what just happened? And they blamed it on black people, right? Wow. They said George Floyd died, and you got a bunch of people out there in mass posing as black people saying Black Lives Matter, throwing flames into stores, running in, breaking windows and stealing. And then go on video saying, well, we did all this stuff and we ain't get paid. Where my money at? You got cops. Cops went into your cousin, Bobby Rush, went into his office and destroyed it, but were caught on camera. And then we're going to say that it was black people that did it. These cops were caught in Bobby Rush's office. Yep. Destroying his office, sitting there, feet on the couch, lounging, drinking all of his coffee. Yeah. Left, and we're going to blame it on black people. That's right. Does that not sound familiar right here? He say they were throwing flames into the fire. Romans throwing flames into the fire, stealing, and we're going to blame, and guess what they're addressed as? Jews. These people who were throwing flames into this fire were dressed as Jews, dressed as blacks, black Christians. And then you see white people dressed up, have on a hoodie. Somebody ripped off their hoodie. It's a white dude standing there. Look at got a hoodie on with some sunglasses and a mask, trying to make it saying Black Lives Matter and kicking in windows and stuff. Them was gonna blame it on black folk, and they did blame it on black folk. Still do.
That's nothing new under the sun.
History repeats itself, right?
That's
Right.
That's because the same leaders, the same spirits that were advising Nero are advising the same ones today. Let's go on. We're going to jump forward to page 365. It says, but neither human resources nor imperial munificence nor appeasement of the gods eliminated the sinister suspicions that the fire had been instigated. So he used every excuse that he could. He said, listen, it was the gods did it, and this, that, and this, and the people were saying, no, all the evidence is pointing right back to you, Nero. To suppress this rumor, Nero fabricated scapegoats. Who are these scapegoats? And punished with every refinement the notoriously depraved Christians, as they were so popularly called. He said the Christians did it.
Wow.
It was those black people who set fire to Rome. Right? It says not only in Judea where the mischief had started, but even in Rome. He said, listen, this thing is, these people are pesky. You know what? So let's blame them. Mm-hmm. And from this point, not only that the prosecution of the prophets, not only is the prosecution of the disciples, but also the people who learned from the disciples, blacks who were following Christ, were blamed. And Peter and Paul were killed off of the back of this lie. And even worse, guess what Nero did after? It says Nero provided his gardens for a spectacle and exhibited displays in a circus in which he mingled with the crowd and stood in a chariot and dressed as a charioteer. Despite the guilt as Christians and the ruthless punishment that it deserved, the victims were pitied. So the people knew that it wasn't the Jews. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't do nothing about it. But what's interesting is, after Nero burned his own city to the ground, he says, and it says, it was those horrible black people, it was those horrible black Christians that did this. Mm-hmm. He says, you know what? For all of you who lost your house, come and live in one of my houses. I'm going to provide housing, food, and water for everybody who was affected. What was he inciting? Patriotism. Mm-hmm. Patriotism. Right. Love your country. Those people hate your country. I want you to love your country so much that you can destroy a people who are against your country. Wow. What are the main thing that white supremacists are screaming? America, the flag, inciting patriotism. What did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar say in all of this? Brothers and sisters getting killed. He talks about we still live in the greatest country in the world. A puppet. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a man who once fought for the rights of black people, right? Mm-hmm. Says, well, even though brothers and sisters are getting killed, it's a horrible time. We still live in the greatest country in the world. Wow. Inciting patriotism. He rolled out a relief plan to make the people side with him. Ignore what they knew was true. Ignore that these people knew that the Christians hadn't done this. Mm-hmm. But because Nero said, well, you know what? Everything that you lost, come on. Here's the relief plan. He made himself a hero and the Jews the enemy. Is this not the same thing that's happening now? Blacks are the enemy with the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. Blacks are the enemy in racial injustice and protesting because they're riots. Right? Blacks are the enemy with the elections. Mm-hmm. Huh. See, y'all think that this is something that hasn't happened before. Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 1.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. Mm-hmm. The thing which has been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. Mm-hmm. And there is no new thing under the sun.
There is no new thing under the sun. It says everything that's been done is still being done. And everything that's being done now is going to be redone. Mm-hmm. So everything all the plans are the same. Everything that's happened now has happened before.
That's right.
Read.
Verse 10. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new.
Check this out. And this has never been done before. Ain't nobody thought of this. Look at this deviant act. Look at the LGBTQ. It's new. It's fresh. It's hip. It's wow. It's now. Right? I'm sorry, but this is not new. These are the same things that have been happening. These wicked pastors that put themselves in positions to deceive the people, it's happened before.
Yep.
The same heretics and heresies that are happening now within the church were happening in Paul, in Peter's church, in Christ's church. This stuff isn't new. It's just the same soup warmed over.
That's right.
It says, is there anything whereof it can be said, see, this is new. Like, it's wow, it's now, it's new. No. Read.
All right. I'm going to start up verse 10.
Mhm.
Verse 10. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new?
Mm-hmm.
It has been already of old time, which was before us.
It says, listen, these same things have been being done since before I was born, before you and I were born. These are the same things that have been done. Don't sit up here and think that this is some brand new thing that has never been done before, because it has. It's people coming up with, check out this new thing. Ever heard of electricity? Like, no, these dead brothers from 2,000 years ago talk about I had a light bulb, brother. Like, nah, this stuff isn't new. This is just the same old soup warmed over. These governments aren't doing anything new or unthought of. They aren't. Especially since we're under the same government. People are thinking that the Roman government is dead. Then why is our government the same as theirs? Anybody ever thought about that? This, what we call a democracy with a president and a government and everything the way we have it set up, is modeled after Rome. This is not new. The same exact government setup. Right? They're going back into history and repeating the same things with the same agenda they always have. And you know why we always lose? Because we won't go and check ourselves. They know history better than we do.
Come on.
How many black history teachers you know? How many black history majors do you know? See, the fact of the matter is that the reason why we always lose is because we don't go back into our history. See, before we were robbed of that history. We were robbed of our history of who we were. But now that we know who we are, we still won't go back into the history. See, what you're going to find is that the same thing that's happening right now in America, that's exactly how it happened in 70 AD. That's exactly why Christ says that there's nothing. That's why he said that when you shall see the city compassed with armies, flee into the mountains. Know that the desolation thereof is not. That's why we can take that scripture and apply it to today. He said, you'll know the last days based off of this, and this.
Come.
We're going to go into the Josephus in a minute, and we're going to show you how exactly what we're dealing with now, we're living in 70 AD.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. Let's get Revelation chapter 12, verse 10.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down.
The accuser of our brethren is cast down, read.
Which accused them before our God day and night.
Okay, so we're saying that Satan has been cast out of heaven, right? So he can no longer go and accuse us before the Most High as he once did, right? Remember when he went before the Most High concerning Job? He can't do things like that anymore. It's saying he's been cast down. So he can't go before the Most High and accuse us the same way that he once had. Right? So he's saying, listen, he can't go and do that. He's lost access to the heavens. Since Christ came and died, he's lost access. He can't cross that barrier anymore. Right?
Right.
Read.
Verse 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb.
Read that again.
Come on.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb.
Read.
I'm sorry. Stop at verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony.
And by the word of their testimony.
Come on.
Read.
And they loved not their lives unto the death.
Once again, it's a blueprint as to how we are to overcome. See, the same sacrifice that Christ made for us on the cross, the prophets lived by. So people think that what Christ brought was something new, was something fresh.
Right.
That the grace that he brought was always there. The spirit of the law was always in the law. He just helped us to see it.
Come on. Hallelujah.
Right?
That's right.
So they overcame Satan the same way that we are to overcome Satan now.
Yes.
And that's through the blood of Christ and by the words by the words that was written in the heavenly tables, by the Bible.
Yes. Come on.
Right? They didn't care for their lives or well-being. The scriptures say that those who seek it to find their life shall lose it.
Come on.
Right? If you're trying to figure out how to stay alive, you're gonna lose it, especially in these times. People aren't preparing and storing up now. You're being told openly, store up food. When you go to the store, get extra food, store up. Because if something goes down and you're not in a situation where you can leave, and you're not in a situation where you can bunker down and stay inside, you're going to be right outside with the chaos with everybody else. Right? You're going to be right outside in the chaos with everybody else. Store up food. Right? So if you get in a situation where you can't store up, where you haven't stored up and now you have to bunker down, and the government rolls out and says, if you're in a tight spot, they go on TV and they say, if you're in a tight spot, you ain't got no food, your family is starving. Just roll on down to your local Walmart. We'll take you in, RFID chip you, and we'll get you some food.
Come on.
See, and a lot of people who chose not to prepare, sounds like a good deal, doesn't it? Sounds like a good deal. Because now it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit in here and starve? Because the Christ gave you a warning. He told you, listen, store up, prepare, get ready, because you're going to have to get out of here. I mean, you got to be ready. But nah. See, nothing like that's going to happen. God's going to provide. God gave you a warning. He gave you a warning. What do you think? What are warnings for?
Come on.
Nah, God is just going to spring something on you and then just pluck you right out of it. He's not going to tell you what's going to happen, even though he wrote a whole Bible with prophecies in it. Let's get verse 12. The rest of verse 12.
Okay. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea.
Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea. Read.
For the devil is come down unto you.
Oh, he's stuck down here now. It's imagine how crazy we went when we were able to go out in the whole world and do whatever we wanted, and then we had to be confined to our houses. You start going stir crazy, right? Satan's the same way. He used to be able to go up and down from heaven. Now he's been relegated to this room. He's going stir crazy. Why? Read.
Salakia. For the devil has come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth he hath but a short time.
He's got a short time. So not only is he stuck down here, but he knows he only has a little bit of time to be down here and do whatever he can to try to get out of this situation. So now he's going nuts. He's like, listen, I have complete control of this realm. Let's make the most of it because I ain't got much time. Right? So he's relegated to this room. And what he does seek to do is destroy and eliminate all of God's children. Why do you think the Bible said if I hadn't sped up the time, there would be nothing left of the children of Israel? Because his target is the children of Israel. Like I said, you had the Chinese sitting in their country for centuries, minding their own business, and nobody bothered them. And the children of Israel were doing the same thing. But 10 times out of 10, every nation chose Israel.
Wow.
You got China sitting over there. All of the resources and everything that they had their hands on. Precious stones, metals, inventions, gunpowder. They had all this stuff over there. Spices. But 10 times out of 10, they chose us. Israel was destitute at one point. We had nothing. And guess what? We still weren't bothering nobody else. And they said, let's get the country that's worth $10,000 versus the one that's worth $13 billion. It's racism. People talk about systemic racism in the U.S. It's international systemic racism. The fact that you got the eugenics program that targets Africa. Why do you think that they're targeting Africa? Because they know that there was a remnant that fled Israel in 70 AD and went where? Into Africa. I'm pretty sure there are some poor little white kids that are getting sick in Europe that need vaccinations. Why doesn't Bill Gates go there?
That's a good question.
Why isn't he in China with his vaccines?
It's not the target. It's not the agenda.
No, but you want to send missions, Christianity and Muslims and everybody, and vaccination and eugenics programs into Africa. Because they asked for it? No. They ain't asked nobody to come over there. I mean, nobody asked you to go to go to Guam. Nobody asked you to go to Papua New Guinea. They're fine. But it's like they were over there minding their own business. And white people go over there and say, you know what? Look at these people over here having a good time by themselves. Let's give them Christianity and some guns and see what happens. And let's just drop a bag of cocaine and act like it was an accident and leave and see what happens to them. And then come back 15 years later, seasoned in shambles, and says, they need our help. When they were the ones who brought the issue. They were minding their own business. They were good. It's like, look at this beautiful island, Papua New Guinea. Let's jack it up. Nah, that was just by accident, though. They didn't. I mean, the people, Cuba, another example. Puerto Rico, another example. These people were fine, minding their own business. And 15 years later, they're leading the biggest slave trade out of Cuba and Puerto Rico that anybody's ever seen. People don't know how big that slave trade was. They were sending 7,500 people annually, a month, back to Europe. How many of y'all knew that? 7,500 people in the island of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and Cuba a month. 10,000 in Brazil. How many of y'all knew that? These people were there minding their own business. But you go there. I mean, you got all of these other nations that could use your help. You've avoided the Middle East all this time. You avoided the Arabs all this time. You ain't going over there with your stuff. But you choose us every single time. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. Nope. Let's get verse 13.
Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth,
He was stuck here, read.
He persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child.
The man-child is Christ. Remember, said that the scepter shall not depart from Judah till Shiloh come.
Come on.
Shiloh is the Messiah. That's Christ. But he didn't just kill Christ. He persecuted the woman that brought forth Christ. Who is that woman? Israel. The woman is Israel, right? How do we know this? How do we know that the woman is Israel? If you go to the same chapter, we're in Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. If you go up to verse 1, it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet." Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the sun represents the tribe of Judah, and the moon represents the tribe of Levi. How do we know this? Because when you read the Testament of Naphtali, he said in a dream that he had, all of the brothers were racing to see who could grab hold of the sun and the moon. Judah was first and laid hold of the sun, and Levi came in second and grabbed the moon. Right? And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. The 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of Israel. So this woman is the 12 tribes of Israel. She brought forth the children of Israel. She brought forth Christ, right? So Satan has been cast down to earth and has made it his sole mission to destroy the children of Israel. Read.
Verse 14. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness.
She was given 2 wings of an eagle. What is it? What are the wings for? Flight, right? And one of the definitions of flight is to leave, to run, right? So she was given wings. She was given a means to leave, right? And she went where? Read.
Let me start back at the beginning of verse 14. And the woman were given 2 wings of an eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times and a half a time, from the face of the serpent.
From the face of who?
The serpent.
The people of the prince, right? Who is the prince of darkness? The serpent, right? So the children of Israel are being persecuted by the people of the prince, the people of the prince of darkness, right? But this wasn't a religious attack. Notice the attack wasn't on Christians in particular. It was an attack on the children of Israel themselves, right? Obviously, the ones who follow Christ are more dangerous than the ones that don't follow Christ. But the children of Israel as a whole are the target, right? So the woman was given 2 wings to fly, to leave, right? To be protected from the serpent. Now, in this particular time, in 70 AD, that was Africa, right? So in 70 AD, they were being persecuted by Rome, and the Most High gave them a refuge so that they could hide for a time. That was in Africa. They went and hid amongst people who looked like them.
Come on.
See, we look different. A black person can look at an African person and tell if they're African or black, right? So we can go there and tell, and they can tell us from them. But white people think all black folk look the same. Like, black is black. But to us, it's like, no, look at his head shape.
Right.
He ain't me. Look at his head shape. His neck ain't long enough. He ain't got a hook. So we look at certain things, we can be like, well, I can tell an African from a black person. I mean, but they look at it like, well, where are they? Where is he? They've all got dreads. Right? So that's the way they look at it. But we went into a place where they could tell us from them and we could tell them from us. But that was a place of refuge for us. That was our wilderness. That was the place where the Most High held us for a time. That's why there is such a great eugenics attack. The colonization of Africa, right? The colonization, the famine, right? The eugenics in that country. It's not by accident. It's because they knew that's where we went and hid, right?
God.
So they took heed to Christ's word in 70 AD. And they went and hid themselves among the dark races. They went into Africa. This is them taking advantage with the colonizing and the missionary works and the vaccinations. It's them taking advantage of the poor, right? That's why they're taking the brunt of the destruction off we're taking the brunt of the destruction off of the back of these storylines. Whether it be the elections, whether it be coronavirus, whether it be racial injustice, blacks are taking the brunt of the attack on all of it. Eugenics was purposely used to continue to target our people all over the earth, especially in the US. How many of you knew that forced sterilization has, they actually they call forced sterilization and eugenics a tradition within the US. How many of y'all know that our women can be forced to be sterilized legally? In August, this is an article from theconversation.com. It's called Forced Sterilization Policies in the U.S. Targeted Minorities and Those with Disabilities and Lasted into the 21st Century. It says in August 1964, the North Carolina Eugenics Board met to decide if a 20-year-old black woman should be sterilized. So a group of white men get to decide whether a woman should be able to have kids or not. Because her name was eradicated from the records, we call her Bertha. She was a single mother with one child who lived in the segregated O'Berry Center of African American adults with intellectual disabilities in Goldsboro. According to the North Carolina Eugenics Board, Bertha had an IQ of 62 and exhibited aggressive behavior and sexual promiscuity. So that's according to them. She had been orphaned as a child and had limited education. Likely because of her low IQ score, the board determined that she was not capable of rehabilitation.
Wow.
Now, in 1964, it was very rare that you even went to school, let alone finished. And even before that, it was rare that a black person would go to school or finish school. So if you give them a test with history questions, and math questions and science questions, and they don't test well, what do you expect from a nation that you didn't allow to become educated?
Come on.
Instead, the board recommended that the protection of sterilization for Bertha, because she was feeble-minded and deemed unable to assume responsibility for herself or her child. Without her input, Bertha's guardian signed a sterilization form.
Wow.
Eugenics. More than 60,000 people were sterilized in 32 states during the 20th century. Based on the bogus science of eugenics, a term coined by Francis Galton in 1883, the eugenics applied emergent theories of biology and genetics to human breeding. White elites with strong bases about who was fit and unfit embraced eugenics, believing that American society would be improved by the increased breeding of Anglo-Saxons and Nordics, whom they assumed had high IQs. Anyone who did not fit the mold of racial perfection was included, which included most blacks, indigenous people, poor whites, and people with disabilities, became targets of eugenics programs. Indiana passed the world's first sterilization law in 1907. 31 states followed suit. State-sanctioned sterilizations, which hit their peak in the 1930s and the 1940s, but continued in some states, rose during the 1950s and the 1960s. The United States and the international leader of eugenics, its sterilization laws actually informed Nazi Germany. The Third Reich of 1933, the law of prevention of offspring with hereditary diseases, was modeled in the laws of Indiana and California. Under this law, the Nazis sterilized approximately 400,000 children and adults, mostly Jews and other undesirables labeled defective. The team that sterilized the Social Justice Lab was uncovered in some remarkable trends in eugenic sterilization. At first, the sterilization programs targeted white men, expanding by the 1920s, affect the same number of women as men. The laws used to broad and ever-changing disability labels like feeble-mindedness and mental defective. Over time, though, women and people of color increasingly became the target of eugenics, amplified sexism, and racism. Forced sterilizations continue. In the years between 1997 and 2010, unwanted sterilizations were performed on approximately 1,400 women in California prisons.
Wow.
The operations were based on the same rationale of bad parenting and undesirable genes evident in North Carolina in 1964. The doctor performing the sterilizations told a reporter that the operations were cost-saving measures.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the forced sterilization continues on. Romani women have been sterilized unwillingly in Czech Republic as recently as 2007, and in the northern China, I don't know that word, a religious racial minority group have been subjected to mass sterilization and other measures in extreme population control. All forced sterilization campaigns, regardless of their time or place, have one thing in common. They involve dehumanizing a particular subset of the population deemed less worthy of reproduction and family formation.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy, isn't it? See, isn't it backwards how feminism fights the right of women being able to, not kill their babies, right? They say, oh, we should be able to kill our babies all we want. But for the women that are forced, who want to have children, that are forced to be sterilized, there's no help.
Come on.
Wow. Look at that.
What about our women who want to have children? Don't their bodies matter too?
Come on.
We don't hear a fight about that though, do we? We don't hear any fights about that. There's like, oh, well, what about the women being sterilized? Shh. Be quiet. We don't want nobody to know about that part. Abortions. How many of you know that more black children died in 2019 and 2020 by abortions than were born? More children were killed in abortions than were born in the past 2 years.
Wow.
Is that not an attack? Considering that 79% of abortion clinics are in black communities.
Genocide.
Yeah. And we're not even including the Hispanics, right? I mean, we look at the situation of our people, right? And we see it, but yet we're so caught up in the political agendas that we've missed the mark. Forgotten where we're actually at in time, according to prophecy. I mean, even then, you look at Hawaii. People forget Hawaii is a state. But those people have been fighting for the same rights that we're trying to get now over there since their queen was murdered.
Wow.
By our president.
Come on.
Yeah. Our president ordered a hit on the queen so that they could annex Hawaii. And then went on to neglect the country as a whole. Let's just build hotels there and not pay attention and pretend the people don't exist. Let's dig up their grave sites and build a hotel on top of the dug up bones. Let's put the people who protest over there in prison. Give them life sentences in prison. You didn't know about that, did you? See, we think that here in the U.S. that we get arrested for protesting and get released the next day, that's an injustice. These people in Hawaii are serving life sentences for protesting injustice in their own country. Life sentences in prison. And that's a U.S. state.
Come on. Tell the truth.
Wow.
And you mean to tell me that it's not racial? That this isn't something that hasn't been occurring for the past couple thousand years with our people? See, now I want to go into the Josephus. We're going to go into the War of the Jews by Josephus. And we're going to show you exactly that what happened in 70 AD is exactly what's happening was getting ready to happen now. Read.
Paragraph 1. And now did Titus consult with his commanders what was to be done.
So Titus is after Nero. Titus and Vespasian just sacked Jerusalem. Right? And now they're trying to figure out what's to be done now. Read.
Those that were of the warmest tempers thought he should bring the whole army against the city.
They say, you know what? Those who were the angriest, still mad about 64 AD, which they lied about, said that the Jews burnt their city. The people who are still angry said, well, we should just send our whole army in and just destroy all of them. Read.
Hold on 1 second till I look up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pause for one.
You could. Go ahead and read.
Okay. And stormed the wall. For that, hitherto, no more than part of their army had fought with the Jews.
Okay. So it says that for that hitherto, no more than part of their army fought with the Jews. So originally they sent in their men. Read.
But that in case the entire army was to come at once, they would not be able to sustain their attacks, but will be overwhelmed by their darts.
So they're saying if we try to attack this city, think of it for Avatar fans, Ba Sing Se. It's a good example, right? Ba Sing Se had a huge wall, right? And it was impossible to penetrate the wall. You couldn't go over it because if you tried to go over it, you would most likely be shot down before you could get there, right? So they're trying to figure out how it is that they're going to get past these forces. So they're like, if we try to go with them straight up, we're not going to be able to fight them. We're not going to win this battle if we try to fight them straight up. Read.
Okay. But of those that were of more cautious management, some were for raising their banks again, and others advised to let the banks alone, but to lie still before the city to guard against the coming out of the Jews.
So some of them had a better idea. They said, you know what? We can't keep wasting men trying to fight these people because we're just going to keep losing. But what if we blocked them in, kept them from leaving the city? What if we could keep them from going in and out? Read.
And against their carrying provisions into the city, and so to leave the enemy to the famine.
So they said, we keep them from going in and out from this particular wall. We're going to use their own wall against them. And we're going to keep them from going in and out so they can't get food in and out. So they can't bring food. They can't bring extra weapons or anything in and out. So now all they have is what they have. And we can starve them. Read.
And this without direct fighting with them.
And we don't even have to lift a finger. We don't even need to go in and send our armies. Read.
For that despair was not to be conquered, especially as to those who were desirous to die by the sword, while a more terrible misery than that was reserved for them.
So they said, you know what? Even those people who want to die, who want to be killed in battle, we're not going to give them the satisfaction. They're gonna let's do something much worse, right? So what we're seeing here is they're deciding, hey, let's entrap people in their homes, or let's entrap them in their own living spaces and let them go crazy. Doesn't that sound familiar? It sounds familiar, right? They say, you know what? We're gonna starve them out. We're gonna starve them out. See, these were all the people who didn't take heed to Christ's warning. These were the people when Christ said, when you see the armies, leave. He said, when you see the Roman armies get there, you need to get out. Because you know that the desolation thereof is nigh. They are going to destroy you. The second the boots hit the ground, they're going to destroy you. So these people were the people that didn't listen to Christ. And this was ultimately their fate. Drop down to paragraph 2.
Okay. Paragraph 2. When Titus had therefore encompassed the city with his wall and put garrisons into proper places, he went around the wall at the first watch of the night and observed how the guard was kept. The second watch he allotted to Alexander.
So he says, then they built a wall around the city, right? They built a wall, put garrisons in their places, and he had people on watch going around. He had people on continual watch. Imagine it like a prison, so that nobody could get in or out without them knowing, right? And he set people in these watches. He had a perfect system going. Read.
The commanders of the legions took the third watch. They also cast lots among themselves who should be upon watch at the nighttime, and who should go all night long around the spaces that were interposed between the garrisons.
So he's saying now they all paid for their different spots so that they could. I want the day shift. No, I want the night shift. So he had everybody in their places to make sure that this thing went perfect. Read.
Paragraph 3. So all hope of escaping was now cut off from the Jews, together with their liberty of going out of the city. Then did the famine widen its progress and devoured the people by whole houses and families.
So now all hope of them even getting out was gone. There was no way that you were going to get out with it. You couldn't leave that city without being killed. Because they said, oh, well, if we set up like this, we can kill somebody one by one. We can kill in groups of 5, but we can't go straight up and battle with these people. So we built a perfect system here. So now all hope of them leaving was off. Those people who didn't listen to Christ, this was their fate. It starts with famine because there's no food going in or out. Read.
The upper rooms were full of women and children that were dying by famine. And the lanes of the city were full of dead bodies of the aged. The children also, and the young men wandered about the marketplaces like shadows, all swelled with famine and fell down dead.
So if you look at usually when you see, I don't know if there's certain areas in Africa where children are starving, you see that their stomach is swollen. That's what happens when you haven't eaten. So it says that they were all swelled with the famine. These were people who even if they didn't leave, they hadn't created provision for themselves. It wasn't enough, right? They didn't store up, right? So these people, the famine was what attacked the people first. Read.
Wheresoever their misery seized them, as for burying them, those that were sick themselves were not able to do it.
So Israel was known for burying our dead. We always buried our dead. That was it was out of respect we buried our dead, right? So our people were so weak it was basically the dead trying to bury the dead. You got a person trying to move somebody to put them in their burying place and just fall over dead themselves. Read.
And those that were hearty and well were deterred from doing it by a great multitude of those dead bodies, and by the uncertainty there was how soon they should die themselves.
So even those who were healthy enough to do it didn't do it because they were worried about them tipping over and dying themselves. Read.
For many died as they were burying others, and many went to their coffins before the fatal hour had come.
So people were putting themselves in their caskets before they died. They were just climbing to their own caskets and waiting for themselves to die. So that they didn't just fall over dead somewhere. And you're going to find out why that was. Read.
Nor was there any lamentations made under these calamities, nor were heard any mournful complaints.
They had been desensitized to death. Death was normal now. It was like, well, Reggie just died. There was no mourning periods anymore. Before, when somebody dies, there was a period that was given for grief. It didn't exist anymore. So many people were dying. It was just, well, Jeff died yesterday. Oh, wow.
Wow.
He dead now? Oh, I figured it was going to be soon. Read.
But the famine confounded all natural passions.
All their emotions, anger, anger, sadness, gone. They couldn't feel. They were desensitized. Read.
For those who were just going to die looked upon those that were gone to the rest before them with dry eyes and open mouths. A deep silence also, and a kind of deadly night had seized upon the city.
The city was quiet. So many, you don't have, nobody has the energy to do anything, so there's no real calamity. It's just dead silence. Read.
While yet robbers were still more terrible than these miseries were themselves, for they break open these houses, which were no other than graves of dead bodies.
So even with all of the death, that wasn't even the worst aspect of it. It was the people who had decided, well, you know what? Let's go crazy. Because you always have to have those, the zealots, the people with the guns and the knives that are the ones around there running things, going crazy. Right? Read.
And plundered them of what they had, and carrying off the coverings of their bodies, went out laughing, and tried the points of their swords in their dead bodies.
That's why people were putting themselves in coffins before they died. Because bodies that were just laying there, they would take their swords and they would stab the dead bodies to make sure that they were sharp, make sure that the metal was good. Right? Just stabbing dead bodies, right? These people were maniacs. They were out of their minds. Right? So they were going and stealing clothes from people, stealing food and everything like that from what people had. Read.
And in order to prove what metal they were made of, they thrust some of those through that still lay alive upon the ground.
They were killing live people, stabbing live people.
Wow.
Read.
But for those that entreated them to lend them their right hand and their sword to dispatch them, they were too proud to grant their request and left them to be consumed by the famine.
There were people who wanted to be killed. They're saying, listen, just go ahead and kill me. You got your sword, right? Just go ahead and kill me. And they would just chop off one arm and let him sit there, let him sit there for him to die.
Wow.
Right? There was a story in here of a woman. Who she was a good woman, right? She was a righteous woman of the Most High, did everything that she was asked. She would give to everybody and everything like that. But when this famine came and she was trapped in this city, she didn't take heed to Christ's words, and she had a baby, right? She was sitting there with that baby, and she was so hungry, right? Still continuing to do everything she was supposed to do. She sat there, so and you'll see it in this chapter. I think it's chapter 4, and she says, if you live, you're going to go into captivity or die. And if I don't eat, I'm going to die and you'll die. And she made up in her mind to eat her baby.
Wow.
And she cooked her, she killed her baby, cooked it and ate half of it. Right? And she left the other half for the men who were coming to steal, to take from her. She said, hey, I ate half of it, you eat. And she was like, listen, I killed my own baby. Leave this to me. Right? And the thieves that came to take from her were astonished and afraid of her. She became a story of the city. That was like, this woman ate her child. That was the situation that our people was left in. And it's the same situation that's happening now, and we don't even see it. They're saying border control. Right? They made this whole situation about the Mexicans. The Mexicans are coming in with drugs. And now I want to put a couple of things in perspective. First of all, Mexicans were crossing the border long before there was a U.S. This country is as much theirs as it is ours. No, it is theirs more than it is ours. So them going in and out is nothing new. It's not something that hasn't happened before. And the government was the one who gave them the drugs for the drug cartels. Majority of the people who are crossing into, first of all, majority of the Mexicans that cross the border go back. They come here and make money at their jobs and bring the money back to their families. So majority of the people crossing the border don't even stay. That's number one. Number two, majority of the people that cross the border are families. They're not drug cartels. The reason for them, the reason for them to incentivize or give a reason as to why they need to put extra military protection at the borders is just an excuse. Because imagine if they just woke up one morning and said, well, we're going to put a bunch of military at all of our borders all of a sudden. You really think these folks out here wouldn't be suspicious? We wouldn't be like, nah, no. Because we go in and out that way. You ain't going, no. But they needed to say, well, there's a threat. There's an imminent threat that we need to address, which is why we're going to put a big old wall between us and our two barrier countries. It sounds a lot like 70 AD, right? And then all of a sudden, the pandemic breaks out. But for some reason, 3 months prior to the pandemic, the stocks didn't get restored. Right? Isn't that weird that even prior to the pandemic, we had already run out of food? There was a food shortage? Don't make sense, does it? Pandemic ain't even started yet, and you haven't had a chance to replenish or bring in anything to replenish your stores. Weird. But now there's no food. People are caught off guard during this pandemic, and now you start seeing people stealing from stores and different things like that. So they say, people are losing their minds. We need to send the military in. We need to send in the military. We need to send in the military because people are stealing. You know? There's not enough food. People caught off guard.
Wow.
Sounds a lot like 70 AD, right? Telling people, well, you can't leave your home. Why do you think we're telling people to stock up? Stock up on food in case they say you can't leave your house. That's why. The scriptures say there is nothing new under the sun. The same thing that they're doing now, the walls being built, them restricting us to our houses. It's been done before.
That's right.
It's been done before. Just like they put the guns in our communities and say that we have a gun problem, that black communities have a gun problem. They put the drugs in our community via mobs and then say that we have a drug problem. And say, well, we need to go in there and seize the guns. We need to, Joe Biden says, well, we need to put some laws in place. First-time offenders go to jail for 10, 15 years. Didn't know about that, did you? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris both put in laws in their respective states that had more black men and more black families broken up than ever. First time, everybody knows that when you have a first time offense, that you're supposed to do either small to no jail time. But you have minors, the age of 16 and up, going to jail for 10 to 15 years on first time offenses.
Come on.
Wow.
Oh, but that's your savior. Final scripture, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1. Because a lot of people are looking at this thinking, well, we have a savior in Joe Biden. He's going to save us. Joe Biden talks all nice. He talks all low and quiet. You guys need us. We're going to help you in this pandemic. We're going to make sure that you and your families are safe. And we're going to make sure that we're at peace with the rest of the world. We're going to enter back into the Paris Accord. Go ahead and read 1 Thessalonians chapter 5.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1. But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you.
He's like, listen, you know what time and season we're in. I don't need to tell you that. Read.
For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord cometh as a thief in the night.
It's going to come like that. Nobody knows. Read.
For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape.
He gave you the warning signs. He told you when it was going to be time. He told you to store up and be ready to go. Because when you you shall see the cities compassed with armies, know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Flee into the mountains.
That's right.
Leave Judea and flee into the mountains. Right? And he told you, he's like, listen, when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them. They saying in front of you, in front of the camera, we are going to help you through this pandemic. Look into my eyes, America. Look into my eyes. And while you're looking into their eyes, somebody is coming to club you in the back of the head. But they say, look into my eyes. And while you're looking into their eyes, they beating you over the back of the head with a stick. Right? That's how it always happens. They say, listen, don't worry about it because I need you to put your guard down. We ain't going to do nothing. The military is just here as a precaution. We're just here just in case. We're just here just in case. We need to see past that. All of this presidential election and all of this coronavirus and all of it, see past it. Stay focused. The Most High told you what the warning signs are. Focus on the warning signs. Focus on the enemy. Joe Biden is only the puppet that the enemy is using. Focus on the enemy. Donald Trump is only a puppet. Kamala Harris is only a puppet. Steve Mnuchin, Nancy Pelosi, they're all puppets. They're just pawns in a game. Look at the person who's playing. You don't win a chess game by looking at the moves. You win a chess game by knowing the person that you're playing.
Exactly.
You know the person that's sitting in front of you. And because you know the person that's sitting in front of you, that's how you win the battle. That's why film is so important when you're an athlete. If I know I got to go up against a certain guy, I'm going to watch all the film that I can to learn what he does, learn his tendencies. The scheme doesn't matter. They could run out there. They could be a passing team, and that week against you, they'll be a running team. The scheme doesn't matter. The player that's in front of you does. And as long as we don't know who our enemy is, or as long as they give us an image of an enemy, who we think the enemy is, we lose.
That's right.
They say, hey, no, don't look at me. Look at this guy. Look at this guy right here. He's the one. Meanwhile, like I said, while the puppet's saying, look into my eyes, you're getting clubbed over the back of the head. Look into my eyes, America. Come with me on a journey to a place where blacks are equal with whites. And you don't have to sit at the dinner table of somebody who died of COVID. And meanwhile, he's giving his speech, they're whacking you over the back of the head. Read.
Verse 4. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief.
He says, I gave you the warning signs. You know what's going on. You're not in darkness. Read. He says that so because you're not in darkness, you can't be caught by surprise. Read.
Ye are all children of the light and children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others.
Let us not sleep as do others. These other people are distracted. They've allowed themselves. At first they were running. At first they're like, yeah, the truth. And then a dove shut up out of the ground. They said, it's a bird. Y'all see that bird? Where it came from. And now you're looking at a bird and stop running. Everybody like, oh yeah, the truth. And then the election came up. But then the presidential election, and not everybody like Joe Biden, Donald Trump. And forgot everything you learned.
Yep.
Got rid of all the people that you've associated yourself with, that you made yourself close to because of Donald Trump. You separated yourself from your gatherings and from the people who brought you into the truth. You separated yourself from your friends that came with you into the truth. You separated yourself from the friends that you've known since you were a kid because of a virus. because that person said, because that friend says, well, I don't believe that abortion is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that abortion is okay. And you say, well, you can't be my friend anymore. Because of two separate ideas that somebody has on something. Who said, I'm trying to figure out where just because somebody has a different ideology on something, or you two are different people, where that changes how we are supposed to operate in this truth. Barnabas and Paul did not like each other. Barnabas and Paul did not like each other, but guess what? They did the work. They were considered brothers in Christ. Right. Just because you don't like somebody, just because you're both in the truth, don't mean you need to be friends. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we need each other.
That's right.
The whole operation is to cause division. Just when our people were starting to unite under a common goal with this George Floyd thing, whether it was false or not, with all of these different false flags that were happening, whether it was false or not, our people were uniting. Unity is dangerous with our people, because the second we unite, that was the problem with Black Wall Street. Come to find out, we look at the history of Black Wall Street and find out that the person who started Black Wall Street knew he was an Israelite. We're gonna have to bring out that history on one of these days.
Right.
There's a document at Cambridge University that was written that proves that the person who started Black Wall Street was an Israelite. He knew that he was an Israelite.
Come on.
Why do you think they bombed that community so quick?
Come on.
Because you had people who are leaving, who are all over the country finding out about Black Wall Street, saying, "Well, shoot, I'm a pilot. Let me go down there and start an airport.
Come on.
Oh, I make movies. Let's go down there and start a movie theater. Oh, well, I cut hair. Let's start a barbershop." You got a bunch of Black folks coming from all over the country to a city run and owned by Black people who know that they're Israelites.
Come on.
Give Black Wall Street another 30 years, and what would have happened?
Come on. Take over. Take over.
Why do you think they call it Black Wall Street? It was a place of Black economic success. It was the Mecca of Black life. Just like Wall Street for them is the main point of access for white people, Black Wall Street was for Black people.
Come on.
It was a huge success. Look up Black Wall Street when you can in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's what unity leads to. Black unity leads to. The attack, it wasn't about the Black people themselves. It was about the Black people who are running the operation. They said the people at the top of this thing know that they're Israelites. That's a problem for me.
That's right.
Come on now. Anytime Blacks get together in a unified posture, they need to turn it off. And the problem is that we're so distracted and we're so fooled that we can be turned on and off. Mm-hmm. We were all up in arms, ready to go. Then basketball came back. Mm-hmm. Everybody was sort of like, well, they're sending a good message with the words on the back of their jerseys. Everybody's unified. Then Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And all of a sudden, crack. And now because Joe Biden's president, everybody who did continue their plight for racial injustice, guess what they're doing now? They're sitting back having a drink because they think it's over.
I lost focus.
Yeah.
Peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them. That's why the Bible says stay focused. That's the problem with our people. We have a problem. We have the attention span of a goldfish. I mean, like, one minute we're like, yeah, George Floyd. Next minute we're like Joe Biden.
Come on.
During this movement, we're saying we're gonna save ourselves, and now all of a sudden we're talking about Joe Biden saving us. What? Who?
Wow.
How do we go from us establishing ourselves as a people to relying on Joe Biden? Who the hell told you to do that? See how they can just turn it on and off? Because some athletes on TV saying, you need to vote. Your vote matters. Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan to vote? I do. I mean, and all of a sudden it went from racial injustice to vote. Vote like your life depends on it. As if this mission that Satan has is going to change whether either of these dudes are in order. We've seen the same mission that was with Bush and Clinton to Obama to Trump. It's all been the same. Black folk were getting killed during Obama's administration. And you know what he did? He protected the cops.
That's what he did.
He's put a bill in order that protects cops against black people. So you're wondering why? So these people who are mad at Donald Trump about what's the sister's name? Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, Breonna.
Breonna Taylor. People are mad at Donald Trump about Breonna Taylor. You really should be talking to Barack Obama. It was his bill that he put in order that is the reason why she got off, why the cops got off.
Come on.
So y'all up here talking Donald Trump is racist because he ain't override the. That was what Barack Obama put in place. Your president, right? Because he can shoot a 3, and he listens to Andre 3000. He's just. He's. Have you seen him play basketball? Black people are just
Shallow.
I mean, it's stupidity. White people don't operate that way. White people are unified no matter what.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, a white person can be like Joe Biden, another white person can be Donald Trump. And I don't see them having the views that we are as a people talking about some, well, I'm yet to see a white person say, well, if you don't believe then Joe Biden, then get out of here. That's only black people posting stuff like that. Blacks and Hispanics, our people. What are we gonna do? Cut off all the Hawaiians? Because guess what? They vote Republican too. Right? We got to be our people are so distracted. If we know the enemy and we know what's to come, our focus now is only on what the enemy is doing, right? And what we're doing. And what we're doing is preparing.
That's right.
Storing up, getting ourselves together spiritually.
That's right.
Getting ourselves together spiritually for the impending war. The desolation of abomination is coming to the U.S. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Nothing's going to stop it. It's a matter of how we prepare. Are we going to be the people who didn't take heed to Christ and was trapped in the city? Or are we going to be the ones fleeing in Africa? The ones who fled, who fled like Christ told them to. Right? Stay focused.
That's right.
Don't allow yourself to be distracted. All these people are caught up in all of these different storylines. At the end of all of those stories, I'll tell you what's at the end of all those storylines. The destruction of our people. You don't even need to follow them now. Now you don't need to follow those storylines because at the end of the day, the end of all of those storylines is our destruction. That's why we're the face of all of them.
That's right.
Destruction. That's what's at the end of all of them. No need to follow it. If you're going to follow a storyline, follow Iran, the U.S., and Israel. Follow that storyline. That's the one that's actually gonna tell you something. That's because last time I checked, Israel said that if the U.S. puts Biden in office and he rejoins the Paris Accord, we're going to war. Yeah, a lot of those who are viewing this didn't know that, did you? You're watching the wrong thing. You're watching the wrong thing. You're sitting there watching the presidential debate and hear Joe Biden say, we're going to get back into the Paris Accord. We're going to get back into the Paris Accord. We're going to get back into the Paris Accord. And you know what? It meant nothing to you because you hadn't been following the right storyline.
Come on.
Him rejoining the Paris Accord starts what the Bible said, where the land of the land of the north is going to destroy Babylon. It says when Joe Biden becomes president and he gets in office and rejoins the Paris Accord, we're going to war. But you were following the wrong storyline, weren't you?
Come on now, tell the truth.
You were following the wrong storyline, weren't you? How about the military that's supposed to be being brought in to administer a vaccine? See, people were like, and those are storylines that you should follow. When you're seeing the presidential elections and everything, you were listening to the wrong things. Donald Trump saying that he's going to put military boots on the ground to administer a vaccine. And when he asked Joe Biden was acting like it's all immoral. But when Donald Trump asked, well, Joe, what are you going to do? Joe Biden's like, well, he going to do the same doggone thing. That's why Donald Trump asked him. He's like, you mean to tell me you ain't going to use you mean to tell me you're not going to use the military? You really trying to tell me you ain't going to use the military? You're not going to use the military, Joe? And Joe's like, either way, the same thing is going to happen. You see the city compassed with armies. No matter which president, the city is going to be compassed with armies. Wrong storyline. Like you're going, no, Joe, you're not going to use the military. They asked Joe Biden that question. They said, don't you think they asked Joe Biden about overloading, adding an extra seat to the Supreme Court. And it was like, don't you think the American people have a right to know whether you're going to do this or not? And he said, no, they don't have the right to know.
Wow.
Just the guy that they wanted. Oh, yeah, he's going to tell them like it is. Tell him, Joe. Y'all, stay focused, y'all. You know the storylines. It says, but ye, brethren, are not in darkness. If you're watching this video, you're not oblivious to what's going on right now. Most likely you've seen the other videos where we put out warnings as to what's going to be happening in these last days. That day should overtake you that day should take you over as a thief. The fact of the matter is that we don't know the day of Christ coming, and we don't know the exact day of the destruction. But if you know that it's coming, you'll be ready for it.
Come on.
The only surprise that you should have is that it's on that day. You shouldn't be surprised in that I ain't got no food in here. Store up. Y'all thinking that this is, people think, oh, well, I promise you, if you ever get comfortable, if you're at a point where you're feeling comfortable, oh, we got the government's giving us money. Government's giving us money. Coronavirus seems to be going down. Everything seems dandy. Just know it ain't gonna last long. The scriptures say that fools make banquet off of borrowing. Right?
Wow.
Those people out here getting stimulus checks, wasting the money that the Most High gave to them. Whatever, you're getting free money. That's not by accident. That's to be used to make a difference. That's to be used for you to make a move. Yep. People talking about I don't have money to get a passport. I don't have money to do this. I don't have money to do that. He gave it to you. He gave you money. But you squandered it. You said, well, I got a stimulus check. I'm going to go get my hair done. I'm going to get my nails done. Brother saying I'm going to get them new Jordans. That PS5 about to drop in a minute. I ain't playing about it. Got to be on top of that. Got to get it done. All of it, just wasted every last cent. And then when the time comes, you're going to be like, I ain't got no food in here. We in a tight spot. Now you're calling up somebody else who did prepare. Talking about some, hey, bro, let me hold something. Let me get a little something. Hey, you do like the brother. Hey, I told you, do that insurance thing. Look at you now. Let me hold something. Like, listen, I told you that's what you should do with that money. Let me get a little bit. Because you did what you were supposed to do and they did it. That's the importance of having, and even then, even what you have by yourself isn't going to be enough. That's another mistake that we make, is thinking that in this walk we can do it by ourselves. Oh, Lone Ranger. All these people thinking, well, it's not important for me to come to Sabbath this week. It's not important for me to gather this week. It's not important to tune into the live this week. Oh, I can watch it later. That's the mindset that'll get you killed. And it sounds harsh. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that we ain't getting to this truth to please nobody. This right here, that the position that we're sitting right now is a man's position. And it's not going to sound pretty. The fact of the matter is that if you think that you can be complacent, you are going to die.
Hey,
It is what it is.
let the truth be told.
If you don't have the ability to stay focused, you are going to die.
That's right.
This walk is an everyday thing. The thief in the night, that's not an accident. You're sleeping, you're around here asleep. Meanwhile, somebody all up in your house. Listen, if you ain't aware, if you ain't on your P's and Q's, you are going to die. Sad but true.
That's right.
Those who think that they can put off the work, that they don't need to commit to this work, that they don't need to be in this every week, that they don't need to be studying in their Bible, that they don't need to follow the correct storylines, that they don't need to keep the law, that they have time to get themselves together with the law. Well, I'm just trying to ease myself into it. You are going to die. The time of easing yourself in, that was 6 years ago. That was a decade ago. That was back in 2008, 2009 when you had time to do that. We don't have time for that now. If you think that you can ease yourself into this, you are going to die. I think that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, you're right. Hey,
It is what it is.
Exactly.
It is what it is. The fact of the matter is that we need each other, right? Because like I said, no matter what, that's why the scripture says, do not forsake the assembly. And the scriptures also say that Christ came to bring a government. So if Christ has established a government, right? Can you run a government by yourself? Can there be a one-person government? How can Christ come and establish multiple offices and there's only one person in that government? Judge, jury, executioner, and and the person being prosecuted. How do you do it? No, that's not how this works. This is a body. Everybody in the body has a work. If you are in a body not doing work, you are not a part. You're not doing your part. You're operating by yourself. You are going to die. Everybody has something that they're supposed to be doing. Everybody has a job. Do yours. We're doing ours. Right? If everybody stores up, that's a perfect example is the disciples. They sold all of their possessions and they had all things common. And they gave as everybody had need. Now, nobody's telling you to go out there and sell everything you have. But as of now, while there's plenteous, in the time of plenteous, store up. While they're giving you free money. When you go to the store, buy a little extra rice, buy a little extra noodles, buy a little extra flour, buy a little extra of this, a little extra of that, and store it up. Because when the time comes, you're going to need it. And guess what? If we've been storing up, and she's been storing up, and he's been storing up, and they've been storing up, and we all come and bring our stuff together, we're good.
That's right.
That's how we're supposed to do this. That's why Christ set it up the way it was supposed to be set up. Everybody does their part, and when we come together, we have what we need. And we give to everybody as they have need. We don't deal with sluggers either. Somebody who hasn't done nothing, who didn't store up, and gonna come in there looking to get a plate. When has Christ's body ever worked like that? Everybody comes and brings something. You show up empty-handed. Look, well, I got a napkin. Just go ahead and drop that cornbread on there. No, that's not how this works. It's not how this works. In these times, we have to stay focused. When you go to the store, buy a little extra. When you get money, put it to the side. Don't spend everything that you have. That's going to be important in these times that we're living in. We have to stay focused on what it is that's going on and what's happening in these particular times. Watching the correct storylines, biblical storylines, things that affect prophecy. Those are the storylines that you're watching. They're going to put a lot of things in front of you.
Yep.
And if you're you're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to get into doctrine being tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. There's too many people like that.
That's right.
I mean, it is what it is. These times are what these times are, but we ourselves have to be prepared and ready for these times. And in order to be prepared and ready for these times, the scriptures already explained it. You have to gird yourself up spiritually with the armor of the Most High.
That's right.
That's the only way you will stand the evil. If you try to fight evil physically, if you try to fight this earth physically, you're going to lose. You're going to lose and you're going to die.
Come on.
You're going to lose and you're going to die.
Wow.
So those people who are lone rangers thinking that they can do this themselves, get you a body. It doesn't need to be this one. It doesn't need to be any particular group. If it's a group or a body of people that are practicing the Hebrews 6, the foundations of the law, practicing Christ's doctrine, they're going by the straight gate. They have everything. They have their ministry set the way Christ's supposed to have it set up. By all means, get up under it, because you're gonna need them. Anybody traveling by themselves, thinking that they're gonna get through this as a Lone Ranger, you're already finished.
That's right.
Already finished. There's a reason why Christ said, "Forsake not the assembly."
God.
Come on.
Right? Christ never operated by himself. Where in Christ's ministry did he ever operate by himself? The first thing he did is get disciples.
Mm-hmm.
This work doesn't get done alone.
That's right. That's right.
Right? So,
Right.
you have anything?
No, sir. I just have something come to my messages here. COVID-19 infections are soaring. Lockdowns could be coming. A list of restrictions in your state. It's been a lot of this talk about lockdowns over the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're just talking about, preparing. Listen, we don't know what type of lockdown they're talking about, but they're talking 4 to 6 weeks. So most definitely, you're going to want to store up, and be prepared, But like I said, we don't know what the restrictions could possibly be in that particular state. So make sure you stock up, buy extra when you go to the store. Make sure you have more than enough, as you don't know whether you're going to be able to leave home or how they're actually going to formulate this thing. So be prepared.
The last thing you want to do is be at the mercy of these people,
Exactly.
because they'll take you in. You just won't be coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, fact of the matter is that have any of you seen it? I mean, the effects of COVID. People, they saying that I'm trying to figure out how the number of deaths continue to rise the way that they are when they say that 99.9% of people who get COVID survive it. That's their doctors. The same doctors that are saying 99% of the people who contract COVID survive it are the same people saying that deaths are skyrocketing. How is that possible? It's not. It's contradictory to what you see what I'm saying. And so all of these deaths, when I can go to the hospital up the street and you only in the lobby is dead. Ain't nobody even in hospitals right now. Ain't nobody in no hospital. But it's saying all these people are contracting COVID and dying and stuff like that. Keep your eyes on the right storyline. And the right storyline is lockdowns. Don't leave your house. Don't leave this. Don't leave that. It's those things that you want to look out for. Like I said, it's not the president putting this stuff in place. It's mostly your local government. So if you have a newspaper, read it. If you have a newspaper, read it. Make sure you get notifications for your local government, because that's most likely going to be the thing that's affecting you most. You have to pay attention to the right storyline, right? Peace and safety. That's what they say. It's always they did the same thing. They did the same thing to the Native Americans. Hey, we can be friends. Just show us how to do everything that you do, how to survive here, and then we're gonna come behind and kill you afterwards.
Yeah.
Put about 200 tribes into extinction. How about that? How does that sound? All right, that is the conclusion of today's lesson. Before we close out, do we have any questions?
The abomination of desolation, what does it entail?
The abomination of desolation is the destruction of our people. And the perfect example I can give you of that, the abomination of desolation is exactly what happened in 70 AD. It's exactly what we read in Josephus. I didn't give the full. It's The War of the Jews by Josephus, book 5, chapter 12, paragraph 1. That's where we started, right? If you want to learn about that particular about the abomination of desolation, the abomination of desolation now is the same as it was back then. They're just they're reheating the same soup that they used back then. So if you want to learn what the abomination of desolation is and what it's going to look like, look at 70 AD. It tells you everything. The same plan is being used. Rather than actually going in and destroying the people right out, well, we're gonna starve you out first. We're gonna force you to come to us, either try to sneak out and come to us, or stay there and die. And then once everybody's too weak to fight back, we're gonna go in. I mean,
Abomination because we're the people of the chosen seed of the Most High.
the abomination of desolation. That's what it's
Eliminate us.
exactly.
That's why it's called desolation.
So it's a vague term, but if you actually if you look at the history of what happened in 70 AD and what led up to it, you'll understand. There was a series of false flags and political propaganda that happened against the Jews and the Christians prior to the abomination of desolation. Because the fact of the matter is that the abomination of desolation, there's going to be two. That was the first one. This is the second one. When you look at everything that led up to it, if their issue was with the Christians, then why did they attack the Jewish state as a whole? There were people in Jerusalem at that time that weren't Christian. They just attacked the whole city. That's because it wasn't about just the Christians. It was about the Israelites as a whole. They needed to destroy all of Israel. Then they need to make sure that they got all of Israel. That's why they made sure nobody could get in or out. And those who did get out were killed on the spot. They were actually making sure that they got everyone.
Can you explain to him why that is their mission based on the Most High's promise?
Well, you know the Most High's promised to Israel, right? As the chosen people, right? Yeah, that's the second covenant, and that's what what in particular every nation is fighting for, what they're vying for, is what they feel that they have a right to, which is the birthright, right? The birthright and the gifts that were given to the children of Israel. So that was, that came with the land, that came with being God's people, and it came with a series of other benefits that Esau and Ishmael mainly felt like they had a right to. So the battle begins there, right? But then you also have the understand that, so what they were promised, what Esau was promised as the children of, as the people of the prince of darkness, right? Because just like God has his people, Satan has his people. That's why the emblem of Rome was a serpent. They're the serpent people, right? So their main goal is to assume the position that Jacob has. If Jacob dies, who gets the birthright? Next man up, Esau. So what they're promised in this whole thing is dominion. They get their birthright back. That's what they're promised, right? So in that particular, so that's why the goal looks the way that it does for the people. On Satan's end, it's a battle against the Most High. His battle is with the Most High. He can't reach the Most High, but who can he reach? His people. That's why his attack is on the children of Israel. If he can wipe out all of the children of Israel, he has control. He assumes position. Right? That's why the abomination of desolation happened. Everything that led up to it, the political, the propaganda, the political propaganda, and all that stuff, saying, "Oh, the Christians burnt the city," and then a bunch of other stuff happens where they're blaming Christians and sort of building up to just destroying all the black people as a whole. It ultimately came down to that, because at the end of the day, the abomination of desolation did not just affect Christians; it affected our whole nation. It wasn't about just the Christians. It was about getting rid of the 12 tribes of Israel, period. And that's what the abomination of desolation is about. That's why all these storylines that we're looking at in the media all point back to blacks. I mean, they say that the majority of the population with COVID-19 is the black population. That's not enough. How can 14, they claim that blacks only make up 14% of the population. But I'm trying to figure out how the hell 14% of the American population affects y'all with COVID-19 just that bad.
Come on.
That's barely a tenth of the American population.
Yeah.
But you're bothering us about some COVID-19. So you see how that doesn't make sense? And then with the racial injustices, with the killing of our people, we're at the face of that. Even though the riots and the stuff wasn't even started by us, we're the face of the riots and the craziness that's going on out in the streets out there. We're the face of that. And then you got the Joe Biden and Donald Trump, where the main thing that people are focused on is the economy, and Donald Trump is racist against black people. Right? Who did the black people vote for? Black people, get out there and vote. Your vote matters. Blacks, vote like your life depends on it. Blacks vote, or else you're going back into slavery. All the main three narratives of 2020, we were at the center of.
Yeah.
Even with sports coming back, who was at the center? Who was at the center of that? Black people. At the center of that too. So everything, all the major storylines of 2020, black people.
But they always start with another race. End up with us.
It started with China. It was the China virus at first.
Yep.
Now people were wary of Chinese people. I ain't going to no Chinese food stores because they might have COVID. And now all of a sudden it's black. Now all of a sudden it went from Chinese people to black people.
Yep.
Before it was Arab terrorist groups. Now it was ISIS and Al Qaeda and all. Now it's Israelite groups being added. Now it's these other black nationalist groups that are considered terrorist groups, Antifa and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Black movements, right? And I mean, even the LGBTQ, who's the face of that? Black people. Blacks are the face of the LGBTQ. All these storylines, we're at the front of it. And every last one of them is going to lead to our destruction. No different than with Rome. We're the face of all of those storylines. That we relied on for everything. It's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been the same. That's why the abomination of desolation isn't just one thing. That's why Matthew 24 applies the same way that it did back then as it does now. Are there any other questions?
In the chat.
We, Calvin, so we're having a discussion. We want to know if strangers could come in and take part in like the kingdom per se.
Strangers as in other nations?
Yeah.
Absolutely, but they need to be submitted to them, first of all, to the Most High's law, and have an understanding that they have no part in the rulership of this kingdom. The rulership of this kingdom, the kingdom belongs to us. Every nation has had their chance to rule and be on top. Israel has not. This is our kingdom. So if they are going to be in it, they will be subservient in that kingdom. So it's righteous servitude. It's not what they did to us. We're not a lot of Israelites are promoting it as we're gonna whip y'all and rape y'all and do everything that y'all did to us. No, that's not what this servitude looks like. The scriptures say death, that a man who a person who steals another man should be put to death. We don't operate that way. We don't go to other people's countries and steal people. We don't operate like that. It's righteous servitude.
That's right.
What they're going to be dealing with is righteous servitude, right? So yes, strangers. The scriptures. Actually, let's get that. I'm gonna get that real quick.
Because
So Revelations.
knowing that they were pretty much saying what you're saying. I was saying because I would bring up Isaiah 56, the promises he gives to like other people that just follow the commandments, like straight them into my gates, like just keep the Sabbath, keep the truth in their feet, hold my covenant. I'll give them place in my house and name them and son of daughters. So I was like, I don't know. We were just trying to clear up the clarification.
Yeah, they'll be there, but they definitely shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that they will have a part in rulership in this kingdom. No, that's not how this works. This kingdom belongs to God's children. It says here, Revelations chapter 7, verse 4. I'm going to go to verse 4 and drop down. It says, and I heard the number of them which are sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe, right? And you drop down to verse 9, and it says that after this I beheld, lo, a great multitude, which no man can number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round the throne, and about the elders of the four beasts, and fell before the throne upon their faces and worshiped God. So all nations would be in the kingdom, but they need to be subservient to not only keeping the Most High and Christ's laws, but also to the Most High's people. It's not going to be a situation where, equality doesn't exist. There's always been a hierarchy. Life was made with a hierarchy. The only time when people want to talk about equality, is when they're on the bottom end of a situation. White people ain't talking about no equality because white people have white supremacy. White people are in charge. So what do they need to talk about equality for? It's the same thing. But when blacks, when we get in a position of power, want to say, well, we want equality. We want everybody to be equal. Well, no, that's not how this works.
We have another question here. I have a question here from Bishop Mike. Who is the son of perdition in Scripture? Will Biden be the last president of Babylon?
The son of perdition. First, I want to get the definition of perdition. Perdition means a state of eternal punishment or damnation in which sinful or impediment person passes after death. Right? That's the noun for what perdition is. Right? Now, I want to get the verb. The son of hell, right? That's basically what it means. It means the son of hell. Eternal damnation, utter destruction, obsolete, lost. Right? Lost. So who is the son of hell? Right? It's Satan, right? The son of perdition is Satan. So I want to go 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. It says, now I beseech you, this is verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of the most of our Lord Yeshua Christ, by our gathering together in him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, nor be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as the day of Christ is at hand. Verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there be a falling away first, that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. You're absolutely right. The son of perdition is the people in power, Esau, Rome, Amalek, right? Esau had a son. Esau had a son or a grandson, one of the two. His name was Amalek, and Amalek has been the main adversary of the children of Israel since really our conception as a nation. It started when we left Egypt and we're traveling as a camp, and as a camp we always travel with the men at the front and the women and the children at the back. And Amalek didn't want to attack us, wanted to attack us, but they didn't want to attack us straight up. So they went around back and killed our women and children. They attacked our women and children first. And ever since that point, there's been a power struggle between Amalek and Israel. And they've always attacked us this way. They still do the same thing now through the system. They attack our women and children first, right? And they want to weaken our men. They'll rather attack women and children than to attack men. So when it says, until that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, is speaking of Amalek, the one who's causing all of these issues. So what I suggest is Obadiah. Read the book of Obadiah. That would be, I think that's the best option to describe as to who the son of perdition is. Check out the book of Obadiah and that'll explain it really well. It says, who opposeth and exalteth himself upon all that above all who is called God, or that is worshipped, so that God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that I was yet with you when I told you these things, right? So it's sort of a double-headed monster in a second, because in a way, because you read the prophecies and it says that there was a beast, right? But that beast got his power from the dragon, right? So these two are one and the same. The beast is Rome. The beast is Amalek, but Amalek is receiving his power from Satan. He's receiving his power from the serpent. So it's a double-headed sword. When it speaks of that, when it speaks of the son of perdition, it goes hand in hand between Satan and Amalek, because they work hand in hand. They work together.
So he said, well,
and will Joe Biden be the last president of the United States? I can't say. What I can say, because I don't think that a lot of people thought that Donald Trump was going to be the last president of the United States. So we can't say that. For all I know, Joe Biden could die next week. He looks very sick. He could die next week and Kamala Harris could be president. And Kamala Harris could die and somebody else could be president for all we know. So I can't say for sure whether or not Donald Trump will be Joe Biden will be the last president of the United States. But what I can say is this: all hell is gonna break loose. That's what I can say. I can definitely say that though. Are there any other questions?
No more in the chat.
Bye. Do you have another question?
No.
All
No,
right.
I just know that I have underlined this. I just found it.
Now, do you have any questions, Nerdy? All right. So before we head out, this is Albert Pike's The Three World Wars. He wrote it in August 15th, 1871. Before any of the three world wars happened, he predicted all three. This is the Third World War, according to his letter. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the Agentur, or the Illuminati, between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. So he is speaking of what we see in the Bible as the battle between Israel and Iran. Now, how does the U.S. relate to this? Because the U.S. has partnered itself with Israel in all war efforts. Look it up. Not only does the U.S. send over $6 billion in money to Israel. But Israel also has Israel also has the U.S.'s army on call. So if Israel wants the U.S. army, they can just call for it, and the U.S. will deploy their armies for Israel. So basically, Israel and the U.S. are one and the same. They're together. So what this is saying is that the war must be conducted in such a way that the Iran, or the Islamic world, because keep in mind they partner with a lot of other Arab countries and Islamic countries against Iran, including Russia and China. Those two countries have also partnered themselves with Iran. And political Zionists, the state of Israel. So now we're seeing that the first facet of the war, of the Third World War, is between Israel and Iran. Paris Accord. Israel says if Joe Biden enters back into the Paris Accord, we're going to war. It says here, meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, and spiritual and economical exhaustion. It says, so this would be the other nations, right? So it says, once more divided on the issue, right? So now you have countries that partner with Iran, and you have some countries that partner with Israel, and now there's a big battle between all of them, and they're going to fight each other until all of them are weak in every way possible. It says, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and they shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all of its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. What is he surprised? So what is he talking about right now? Religious. Now he's talking about religious battles. He'll unleash the nihilists and the atheists. We're living. How many of y'all know that we're living in an atheist country?
Yeah.
The majority of people in this country are atheists. A lot of people don't know that. There's people, or at least behave like atheists. See, people think that atheism is restricted to not believing in a God. Atheism is also a behavior, behaving as if there is no God.
Yeah. And that's what you see with this election.
Right? So I'm sorry, but a person who's an open homosexual and saying that they believe that there's a God, they're living a life as if there's atheism, because God doesn't accept that. Atheists are servants of the devil, don't even know it. It says, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm. Social cataclysm. What are we dealing with right now? Joe Biden, Donald Trump, white supremacy, black versus white, all of these different social issues dividing the people, right? The social cataclysm. It says, which in all of its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism and the origin of savagery of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens oblige themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, the multitude, and the disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits, Now, notice he describes the Christians as having deistic spirits. Do you know what a deist is? How many of y'all know what a deist is? It's a person who believes that God exists, but no longer operates. So it's almost like he created everything and then just left the world to itself. So even then they behave like atheists. Well, God don't got nothing to do with this. So I'm gonna just live my life like it is. So, and that's how Christians operate. No?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Christian, but they out here fornicating and smoking weed and drinking alcohol and eating pork and all this kind of stuff. Pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, whatever it is. They're out there doing all of it. They're living a deist lifestyle. And Albert Pike points this out. He says, it says, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction. I'm going to read that from the beginning. It says, then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, which means they're defending themselves against the atheists and the nihilists, right? Will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity. They're going to destroy each other, right? whose deistic spirits. Now, keep in mind, because the Christians are already have a deistic spirit, how can you defend your faith when you already have a deistic spirit, as if God doesn't exist, and you live and behave as if God doesn't exist? So Christianity is, in a sense, destroys itself on that sort of basis. And it says, without knowing where to render its adoration, right? Anxious for an ideal without knowing where to render its adoration. So it's saying that now that they've been exposed and they've lost faith in their own religion, now they don't know where to point their adoration. They don't know what to be. It says, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. They're going to roll out Lucifer in front of everybody for everybody to see. See, because we've been living in a system that's already a Luciferian society, when they roll it out, it's not going to be that much of a difference. They just got to keep doing the same thing that they've always done. So it's not, and even then you ask a Christian, you be like, or you ask somebody, you be like, so what do you think of Lucifer? He's misunderstood. People make it seem like he's evil, but I just think he's this misunderstood guy. They paint Satan as being the one who was wronged in the situation. Satan is being painted as a good guy. Since we're living in a time now that's been desensitized to different things like this, for example, a show called Lucifer, where they make Satan, Lucifer, a likable character, right? It's going to be easy. I mean, majority of people already think this way.
That topic of atheism, that's a whole lesson in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go into.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to.
That would be a good topic to go into. Absolutely.
So it says, "Will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view." So notice how it says that it's not something that they just bring out of nowhere. They said they bring it into public view. They're gonna show people how. Listen, this was always there. You always did it. You just never realized it. Now it's out and open. Just do it you've always done it. You might as well indulge. And since people are already desensitized to the idea of Lucifer, where people don't even see Lucifer as a devil anymore. They see him as a good guy. Right? The manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
Wow.
So even the atheists are going to believe in the devil. They're going to believe in Lucifer. The end goal, ultimately, what all of these things are going to do is formulating and is pushing everybody into one ideal, one world order. Everybody, one currency, one ideal, one religion. Why do you think they're saying coexist now? Why do you think they're preaching coexisting of all religions? Because all these religions point back to one God. That's Satan. That all started at the Tower of Babel. They were all following Satan at the Tower of Babel. All they did was split the tongues. Right? And the gods had different names. But they've all been following the same God all along. So when it's finally revealed and they say, well, Lucifer. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Lucifer was Vishnu, wasn't he? Lucifer was Allah, wasn't he? Lucifer was Jesus, wasn't he? And now that coexist becomes so much easier. Yeah, he was born. They were all born of virgins, weren't they? See, paying attention to the wrong storylines. Wrong storylines. You get it now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Stay focused. Stay focused. The right storylines. Staying in the scriptures is going to keep you focused. If you're reading the scriptures and you're in the scriptures as much as we're in the scriptures and praying and meditating, when things come up in the media, and when you see it in the media, you're going to be able to pick it apart. You're going to be like, oh, I know what that is. I know what this is. When that statue of Lucifer, the Baphomet, went up in Arizona, we all knew what it meant.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that stuff wasn't alarming us. Stay focused. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by, especially petty stuff like a presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow division amongst you and your people based off of a presidential election, you are weak.
Thank you.
Weak and feeble-minded. If you can let a dissension come between you and people that you care about based off of an election, you are weak. You're not going to last. If you're going to allow yourself to be distracted and taken off course by something like that, you're not going to make it. So fix it. Fix it.
That's right.
You only have a short time to do so.
That's right.
Stay focused. With that, we're going to give all thanks and praise to the Most High for continuing to send His Holy Spirit to give us the right messages, the right timely messages for those who need them, and for continuing to guide us in this time, because we do need the Holy Spirit to continue to show us which direction we're supposed to go in and continue to guide us and bless us, not only as a family, but as a nation as well.
That's right.
So with that, we will say Shalom, blessed Sabbath to everyone. All praise to the
Shalom.
Most High.